Hello and welcome back for another chat with Howdy, another Rules of the Realm. I think we're up to number 9, is it? 9 or 10, I'll have to check. Yes,
I
so
think so.
we're going to continue the conversation. We kind of left off, we kind of hit it right at the end of the last video. Questions are the start of the quest. So that's where our quest is going to start today. That'll be the question, and we'll see where it leads us. So welcome, Howdy. Good to see you again.
Hey, and I was just commenting what a nice looking background. You feel like you're in the place of complete research.
Exactly right. Yeah, I can just imagine the old Stoics walking around in their robes, books in their hands. Oh, actually, they'd probably be outside of the trees, wouldn't they?
You know what? I wonder if that's in Florence. I wonder if there was a library in Florence that I went to in a really obscure part of the city, and I could never remember what it is. But actually, now that I wonder if that's what I know you said you think it's a private home, but I wonder if it's actually a library in Florence.
It could
Somebody might
be.
be able to tell us.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone knows, leave it in the comments because I just found this as a background and I haven't been able to find exactly where it is. So there's a quest for you. So yeah, quest.
Yeah, there you go.
The quest and another part is something I was sort of contemplating a while back is the word ion, at the end of all these words, because an ion is pretty much that's energy, right? That's when they break down to the less than the atom. It's an ion, which is literally, it's not physical, it's an energy source. So it's interesting to think of words in that context as well.
Right.
It's like, so the question is the quest for the energies, for the whichever way you want to look at it, for the energy source, for the truth, for the 0 point, the oneness, the defined sort of answer. So, and of course, this can apply to any word with the word ion on the end of it. But interesting, yeah, a bit of interesting spelling there.
That's a good point. I know I just did a quick look to see the origin of the word question, and it didn't really, it sort of took you into Latin, meaning a word to ask or seek or query. So I didn't really get too much from that. I did, though, for a starting point, I did remember, gosh, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was talking about that I read a while ago, saying that the problem isn't that you don't have an answer, that you have all the answers you'll ever need inside of you. They're already there. The problem is you don't have the right question. And until you have the right question, you won't actually find the answer. So, in one sense, it's very interesting that the quest is actually defining the true question that is at your core. Like we have 100 questions sitting around, but there is one that's at the deepest part of us, and that is the one that opens the door to where our answers lie. That was what was in this book from a few years ago. I think it's a valid point.
I do. I sort of came to the realization, a while ago that questions are much better than answers, right? They're much more important than answers, because exactly for what you just said, if you don't ask the right questions, then you can't get the right answer. So, it's kind of like we've talked on a few points like this, isn't it? Where we're sort of retro engineering the way that we think. We kind of tend to think, in reverse a lot, don't we? Whereas we focus more on what questions are we asking, like you said, defining which is actually going to take us where we want to go and get us the answer we want to get, and it's not leading us astray. That's the quest, right? So it literally is the quest for the question, which I think is going to be the title of this video.
Right. And I guess if we take it back a step and we think, well, what is a quest? Because it's a very thrown out word, and it links to the whole story of the Holy Grail, of course. and mythology is loaded with
Yeah.
this idea of the quest, be it Hercules, be it whoever, right? So we have this sort of very ancient and mythological, almost fairy tale like idea of this word quest. And then there's well, what does that mean in a person's life? So if I throw that word to you, just the word quest, what comes to you from that word in your mind?
Just trying to attain something, the journey to attain something is what I would think, quest. And what I think of
Okay.
is the hero's journey, and it's been pointed out that there are, is it 9 or 10, I can't remember, certain steps that all these hero journey stories, they all
Hmm.
follow the same recipe, basically, which is interesting,
Right.
which can lead us to assume that, at least, at the very least, some of them, but probably most or all of them, they're just stories, right? They're stories of an inner quest, and they're trying to tell us something that,
Right.
it's not literally Jason running after a golden fleece, necessarily. It's an inner quest.
I would say that's for sure that the story is meant to, or there's both. I think you can't, it's very difficult to just sit in a room all day, lock yourself in there and complete an inner quest. I think there is outer work and dealing with the world and reality that also pushes that inner quest. If you just lived in a cave, a lot of stuff won't come to your mind to be questioned. There's a time for it when it is time, I think, to shut out the world and just, okay. But if you don't have enough, like the Buddha, right? The story of the Buddha happens from his leaving the palace, going out in the world and experiencing a massive suffering. And from experiencing that massive suffering, he had to say, I don't know what's going on here. And so his inner quest began. So I think there's this outer and inner part that somehow link together in the total package.
Yeah, well, it's true. I think we need to experience the physical world, don't we? We need to be out there to I guess, get a reaction from it, and that can, lead us on the quest. Yeah, I often, you know, say that, this sitting on the cushions, and what good is it really if that's all you're doing? And we hear about these monks who sit in caves for, apparently hundreds of years, and it's like, how far can you really go with that? Because really, their experience, because we're still in a physical world. This is the thing, there's some people that are so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good, right? So unless we're out there experiencing and also passing on those experiences, right? Because if we're not interacting, then we're not part of the whole story. We're not part of the creation, that creating the story. So yeah, I think it's going out and into the world and seeing what happens, and then you take that back in and contemplate it and work within it, see what the real message is, and that would probably help to find the question that we're looking for a lot, really.
Yeah, obviously it's a bit of both. If you only go into the outer world, and there are people that do that, who only go into the external, never really kind of hide from their internal world, you're going to get a certain amount of information, but you're never going to turn it into wisdom. I guess that's the thing. Knowledge comes from the interaction externally.
Yeah.
Wisdom comes from then the application of that inside, of what does that really mean? And I think that's where the question, you know, how to sort of put it into
Yeah.
terms that we can sort of, as a group, look at in our own world. And once something happens externally, say, like, for example, when my girlfriend was murdered, really good story. So when she got murdered, that was an external event that had external implications to me. But the real thing happened is I asked a question. And the question I asked of is, why would someone who's living her life perfectly the way you're supposed to now be dead? that doesn't make sense according to the rules of the realm I had been given as a child.
Hmm.
And there was no, I wasn't talking with other people. I wasn't having discussions with other people. The only person I was discussing this with myself. So I was going on these inner questioning to try to determine the way reality responded. What's that called? Dissidence, where your belief system hits a reality that doesn't match, and there's this bashing point. And at least some people will ignore it. They'll just hide from it. They'll come up, they'll band-aid, they'll patch it, right? They'll just patch over it. And sometimes we'll get a question and say, "What? Wait a minute." And so that's a real world example. I mean,
Hmm.
someone going through a divorce, someone going through the death of a child or a loved one, someone going through being fired from their job. Any of these things could trigger the next round of inner questioning.
Mm. Yeah, it makes me think of the Vesica Pisces again. You know, if you think of the two fields, one being the outside world and the other being the inside world, you know, we go out and have experiences in the physical world, and then we have the inner world where we have a collection of the thoughts and everything that, you know, we've collected, I guess. But then you have the Vesica Pisces is where they cross, and that's like the contemplation. That's, you know, bringing them together, right? And through that contemplation, you then go out and do more activity, which gives you more. And so, yeah, a lot of things I sort of think, I'm always seeing this sort of Vesica Pisces kind of symbolism as the creation point. And it's like you could just have two fields that don't interact, and then, you know, you can have whatever information you want, but unless you're doing something with it. And of course, with, you know, tragedy in certain circumstances, they force you to contemplate, don't they? They force you to think about these things you can't really ignore. And that's why a lot of change and stuff happens in those circumstances.
I'm just trying to think of, like, 'cause we have so many great stories of quests, right? Um, so if I, just for curiosities, okay, I hate Wikipedia, but okay. If you go there, a quest is a journey toward a specific mission or goal. The word serves as a plot device in mythology and fiction, a difficult journey towards a goal, often symbolic and allegorical. Okay. When we look at some specific quests to think about, okay, we have Sir Galahad's quest for the Holy Grail, and really the whole story of the Holy Grail is an inner journey.
Yeah.
What other ones here come up as historic, as examples? I'm just looking to see if anything
Heaps of
really
Greek
good
ones, isn't
pops
there?
up. I guess the Lord of the Rings in a way is a
Yeah.
quest story.
Gilgamesh, is that a
I'm
quest?
just trying to think of
Um,
which one.
Gilgamesh, Epic of Gilgamesh. There's a
Gilgamesh, yeah, sure, that would be a quest, right?
ton of Greek stuff like Jason and the
I guess
Argonauts.
Star Wars. Star Wars is a
Yeah, well,
quest.
yeah. Yeah, well, as far as modern ones, I mean, there's lots. You see, this is the thing. It's, I mean, I guess we're sort of thought to think that a quest is attaining a physical object, like, you know, Indiana Jones, right? All of those as well. They were all quests, and those
Right.
kind of movies. So, but it's always a physical object, isn't it? Sometimes they sort of allude at the end that they actually, you know, once they get the physical object, they realize that it's not that they were chasing and it was really an inner thing, but which is
Right.
the truth.
Right.
But most of the time they kind of just focus it on physical things, don't they? So I think when we even, you know, start asking these questions and looking at them, we're still, you know, it comes back to the question, right? I've got to make sure it's the right question, because, you know, every time we ask a question, it, you know, no matter how, you know, open-minded or free-thinking we are, we're still in some kind of, you know, intellectual box. Everyone, you know, as far as our thinking, we've all got, there's still parameters that we haven't broken down. So just that little thing, like, so the quest, you know, it's really, if you start thinking inner journeys, I was just thinking of like Avatar. Like, there's nothing that he attains physically, but he saves a people, like, and he attains, you know, like
Mhm.
something for himself that he wanted to do to make, to sort of, whatever
Right.
you want to call that. So there's a lot of those movies as well that aren't really sort of considered, quest movies, I guess. And books, no doubt,
Hmm.
stories. I mean, you could even look at fairy tales, right? Like, is Rapunzel and things like this, Sleeping Beauty, where, from the prince's point of view, I guess, was,
Mhm.
all these types of things. Do we have the
So I wonder, like,
what is
go ahead.
the hero's journey? What were the points of that?
Um, yeah, you can look that up. Um, Joseph, because he had, yeah, like you say, there were 9 points, or there were nine,
9 or 10 that
9 things
sort
it
of
has in
steps.
common, something like that.
Yeah. So I think that's just called, if you put in hero's
Um,
journey
hero.
or steps, hero's journey steps or something. Um, and they
You
go
look it
through as
up, and
like
I'll look it up too.
King Arthur and Jesus and everyone.
Okay, so I've got one here. Happens to be on something called movieoutline.com, and they're giving 12
12.
stages. And the 12 stages, at least here, is ordinary world, the call to adventure, the refusal of the call, the meeting of the mentor, crossing the threshold, tests, allies, enemies. That's number 6. 7 is the approach to the innermost cave. 8 is ordeal. 9 is the reward, bracket, seizing the sword. 10, the road back. 11, the resurrection. 12, return with the elixir.
Oh, with the elixir. That's an
Did you
interesting one.
find something similar?
What did I get? I got heroes.
Yeah, so if I
Darren
read the
Hardy.
last one, okay,
Yeah.
return with the elixir. Wait a minute, I'll read that one because there's a little blurb. It
Okay.
says, return with the elixir. This is the final stage of the hero's journey in which he returns home to his ordinary world a changed person. They will have grown as a person, learned many things, faced terrible dangers and even death, but now looks forward to a start of a new life. The return may bring fresh hope to those left behind, a direct solution to their problems, or perhaps a new perspective for everyone to consider. The final reward that is obtained may be literal or metaphoric. It could be a cause for celebration, self-realization, or end of strife, but whatever it is represents 3 things: change, success, and proof of the journey. Ooh, I like that one. And proof of the journey.
Proof of the journey. Yeah. I just saw one that had 17, but most of the others seem to have 12. And yeah, pretty much the same. Ordinary world, call to adventure, refusal of the call, meeting the mentor. Oh, okay. And it's even got a little graph. Story arc, PowerPoint template. Oh, okay. And it puts it into 2 acts. So
Hmm.
crossing the threshold, and then Act 2 is when they meet the test, the allies. And I don't know if you've seen them, but I was a big fan of martial arts, and of course, pretty much every martial arts movie is a hero's journey, and
Mhm.
they even have, like, they love to put the little montages in there where they're going through all their
Right.
training and all that, and they really set. There's always the master, there's always the enemies. So I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's more prevalent in Asian cultures and Asian literature, and the quest. I mean, we get it because what I'm thinking of is most of our classical stuff is Greek, pretty much, isn't it? That's where most of it seems to all come from,
Right.
just the Greeks, which is
Well, of course, there's the Egyptian ones before that, which a lot of the Greek stuff was all based on. Just the Greek stuff is more accessible to us, or more, the translation was smoother and easy. To try to go through the Egyptian stories in properly is it requires a lot of work. So Greek is the most ancient ones that are most accessible, I guess, and also some of the ones from India. Some of the things in the Mahabharata might be also accessible to Western readers.
yeah. Actually, the Vedas have a ton of them, don't they? I mean, and and the Bible.
Right.
If we're to be fair, that there's quests in the Bible. And I was just thinking, King Arthur's got multiple quests in that one story, hasn't it? You know, it's got like the sword in the lake,
Right.
as well as the you know the gosh, what's it called, the Holy Grail, the Guinevere, is it? You know, the quest. I mean, there's tons of. I mean, that's just a big ball
Yeah.
of quests. But I was just thinking, I mean, that these could be good questions, right? You know, question your world. What is your worldview? What, you know, what do you feel is a call? You know, what do you feel is calling you? Why are you refusing the call? You know, you could almost go through these and ask these as questions to try and define what your ultimate question is as well. You know, have you met any mentors who could work, you know, because of course these days books can be mentors as well. You know, it doesn't have to be Mr. Miyagi or anything like that. So that's another way that, you know, you could use questions to define the questions. I mean, getting back again to questions of the quest, right? You know, so that's, yeah, another interesting sort of way to look at it is it comes back to we need the right questions and the contemplation of finding out what questions, I guess, are ultimately going to get us where we want to go. And I guess that's the inner work, playing that out in our mind. You know, if we ask this question and do that, then where's that going to go? And ask another question, where's that going to go? And ultimately try and hone in on the answer that we want. Which is interesting because you have to ask, you know.
It seems like, yeah, it seems like just as we're talking, it seems like, so we've got this, the need for the question itself. So we have this need of something we desperately need to know. And it's not small. It's not like, it's got to be something that really will drive us maybe for years. And then it seems like, and the stories and the myths and the movies kind of, I guess, give us a template, but there must be something externally in the world to at least focus our attention on for a while. That it's like the question is linked to a object or a thing or a place. Like for me, the quest of this journey started needing to know the secret of ancient Egypt and specifically the Great Pyramid. So which of course expanded when I realized, oh yeah, there's 8 giant pyramids in Egypt, not just one like they try to tell us. There's 8 of them, and they should all be studied equally. But it gave me a thing to sort of put the underlying questions towards. I'll tell you when the problem started for me after I'd been to Egypt the first time and had been inside all these pyramids and started to check off parts of the giant question. And then I was like, now what? I mean, it was like, if I went to Egypt and went on all these pyramids, all my answers would be solved. It would all be done. Everything would be fine. And it wasn't. And it was like, now what? And like you're saying, the question has to stay strong, and the external thing, the actual Holy Grail or the Indiana Jones, whatever. It's like, if you think obtaining a physical external object will answer all the questions, you're already mistaken at the beginning. It's like just a direction point. It's a way to get you moving. It's a way to keep you going forward. If you think the object will be the final answer, you're already mistaken.
Yeah. It's the journey. It's the journey that object takes you on. That's where the lesson is. That's where the learning is.
Right.
Yeah, it's never. I mean, because as we know, there's no end point, and as you learned with the pyramids, you know, we never get the answer. All we get is more quests, right? And I guess when that happens, then we have to choose again which direction we're going to keep going in. But that's definitely it has to be the right question. I mean, you look at all these, you know, epics and heroes' journeys, and they just go through so much hardship. Like they really overplay it in the stories. Like, you know, like and they're almost saying, are you serious? Are you really going to do this? Because look what these people had to go through. You know, blah 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 blah. You know, I mean, Lot. Oh no, who was it?
Well, I think if your question is serious,
yeah.
question is serious, if your question is like, I want to know what happens after I die, for real, not as a belief, not, I mean, you need to know 100%, man, are you going to get challenged?
Yeah, exactly. You are. I mean, and I mean, it's a perfect example at the moment. In the last couple of years with social media, questions have been asked, and yeah, everyone who is asking questions is look what's going on. It's a reflection, in the physical world of what always goes on. So that's the first thing. Yeah, you're going to get resilience, aren't you? Or you're going to get resistance. Sorry. So you need resilience.
Mhm.
Yes. Which of course you won't have unless you got the right question. And this is a big problem, right? This is what was
Yeah,
going on all through the 80s and 90s and noughties with all this, self-help, right? And goal, and goal setting, you've got to get money.
right.
And they used to give people, that this is what you want. So instead of people, instead of being taught, ask the questions and define what you want, they were like, no, you want a BMW and you want a house on the beach and you want, a gold watch, and then people would go, yeah, and they'd all get right, yeah, I want that. And of course, what happens 2-3 weeks later? They're sitting there going, I've got no motivation to do this, and blah blah blah, because they didn't ask any questions, let alone the right ones. So this is the thing about questions. If you're not asking them in the right ones, you're never going to hit that point of knowing this is what I really want. It's going to be sort of misdirected by other people.
I think it's a really important point for everyone watching this, is that a lot of the self-help movement, because that's really what it was a movement, it was a big organization, and part of the design was getting people to ask the wrong question, to be chasing something that they didn't really truly deeply want. That if the defining part of that whole movement was, let's find out what you actually really want at the deepest level of your being, and then use our techniques to help get it, it might have had real value. But instead it was, let's define something really simple you can chase, like you say, a new car, a new house, bigger boobs, rising up your corporate ladder, having everybody like you, whatever. It was all this designed somehow in some egoic satisfaction, or feeling better about yourself, as opposed to, but what's really down there? What is the question that is sitting at the core of your being, that's kind of like been waiting to come out your whole life? It didn't do any of that. And so right away, that's, I think, a really good example of what you did, of why nobody, or almost nobody, and I'm not going to say nobody, because there are a few people that still would have taken that framework,
Mm.
Tony Robbins or whoever, and they would have at some point said, well, this isn't working for me, but I can feel this deeper, and then applied, did the work, did this themselves. They applied all this information to what was really deep and meaningful, and probably did get something quite powerful out of it. The rest, yeah, just kind of floated on the surface
Mm.
and didn't really get anywhere.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because it became a business, and they knew that, if every person who achieves their dreams, they've just lost a customer, right? They're not going to buy the next book. And that's kind of what it comes down to, unfortunately.
Right.
And it did hit points of ridiculousness, but every, as you mentioned, every self-help, anything that's proclaiming it's going to help you change your life for the better, the first step is always defining what you want. I mean, it's got to be. And so it's a good exercise too. If you think you want, whatever, let's just use a car, for example. If you think you want a BMW, well, picture yourself in that BMW, and how do you feel? Are all your, is your life different? Do you feel like things are solved? Because I think most of the time, if and you can do it with whatever, right, a house or whatever, you'll quickly realize that's really not what you're looking for. And through doing that, you may discover other questions, right, of what really, because like if it's being on an island, right, or having a holiday, you'll probably find it's more to do with, the company, the people that are there with you, or, whatever, the relaxation you think you're going to feel. It's not actually being on the island. So
I'm just coming back to something that was part of Richard Rose's stuff. I like to bring up him quite a bit. He talked about there being three actual, did you call them emotion? No, he called them moods. And you'll notice them in your dreams easier than you notice them in your real life. But he said the three were fear, seduction, and nostalgia. So fear is fairly obvious. We're afraid of something and we're constantly running away from it, but we never define generally what's making us afraid. The second is more of what we're talking about here, and that's seduction. In a sense, it's there's something external to us that we want. This is generally how a quest is thought of, if it's thought only of in the object. And he talked about, if you notice in your dreams or even in real life, whatever it is you've been chasing after, when you finally get it, you find you're very unfulfilled. It didn't actually, it in one sense didn't make you as happy as you thought it would, and probably won't make you as happy for the expenditure of the energy that you put into it. And that would be because our deepest question isn't involved in it. It's just something I want. It's moving from an I want to rather than I need to understand. Then the third one he had was this nostalgia, which he said was actually a very valuable mood. It's the mood where you're sitting back and you're constantly thinking it was always better in the past, or when I was young it was like this. And he said the value in that is not this, you're losing your way in the present. His point was that it's trying to move you to something that was more idealistic, something that was actually greater possible than was or is now. And it's trying to actually bring you home beyond this realm, where there is this place that where we come from that is more, but the nostalgia in something nostalgic in this world is really nostalgic for something outside this world. So it's very interesting to sort of, if we wrap all that up into the idea of quest. So the quest has the seduction, a bit of it. There's the object that we're seduced to try to get, but we don't know why. We have the nostalgia of, and it can lead us to something much deeper, much greater, much that we felt when we were younger. And then there's the fear of what happens if we do it, or what happens if we don't do it. So it's very interesting that now that I think about it, those three moods do wrap into this whole idea of the quest.
Yeah, yeah, nostalgia. That was, I mean, that sort of plays, to the simulation a bit, doesn't it? That we've come from somewhere else and kind of remembering our original state, and that, I guess, is ultimately, what drives us is that, people who have a connection to something bigger sort of tend to have a bit more drive. But I guess, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that, I don't know, that brings it back to the question of, why are we here, right? What are the rules? But if you do think of it as we're here to learn or to whatever, make a better world, then that nostalgia would definitely, push you in that direction. And then fear would push you in the opposite direction, wouldn't it? It would be like, oh, this world is, it's almost the opposite. Like, I'm scared of where I am now, and so I'm going to try and sort of just reject it and pretend it's not there. What was the other one? Fear, nostalgia.
Fear, seduction, nostalgia.
Seduction, that's right. And then seduction, that's the one that just confuses people. Wow. And of course, without the right questions, that's how we get seduced, right? We fall into that thing. Same with fear. Fear's not, I think, as well, is not, it's a lack of asking questions or the right questions, for sure, because we know that, information cures fear, right? And then with nostalgia, I guess,
or at least lets you know what to really be afraid of. It defines
well, that as well.
There are certain things to be afraid of and certain things not to.
Yeah.
So it at least lets you know, oh, this is a logical fear.
Yeah.
I should actually be afraid of this thing right now, and otherwise, this is just me being out to lunch.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with fear is, if you can't fight or flight, it's not real. It's just imagined, isn't it? You have to be able to respond to fear for it to be real. And this is the problem: is people contemplate, fear all the time. And I mean, that's not asking questions, isn't it? That's repeating answers over and over. It's the opposite, it's like they're repeating, oh, if this happens, someone's going to rob me, and then this will happen. And they're just going over answers, which just compounds fear. And so I think questions, and that's what a quest is, right? A quest ultimately is overcoming your fears, and I guess that's what a lot of questions are, like people are scared to ask themselves certain questions that, that they're scared to go, to a deeper level, especially men, right, with emotional stuff. People who have been through, trauma and that. And that's the quest, other different people have different quests and different amounts of pain. But in the end, the only way to get over them or to get through, to a different level is to ask the tough questions. And that's almost a saying, right? Are you prepared to ask the tough questions? And I guess that's what we've got to do of ourselves. Are we serious to go on that quest?
This is just while you were talking, I'm just writing all this down.
Oh.
So if we take those three ideas then, and we throw it into the idea of what is of the quest. So the quest, in one sense, is a drive, and there's a nostalgic drive for it. There's something in order to even go on a quest at all, we have to feel there's a reason to do it. And we have to feel that there's some reason something can get better, or like you say, the village is sick and the shaman has to go out into the forest and find the cure. There's something that's driving them. And there's at least the feeling of something can improve, something can change, something can be better to drive the quest, either internally or externally. Then there's the seduction element, because there has to be something externally that you're questing for. Even if it's just to find the plant medicine in the forest to heal the people sick in the village, there's something external that at least a focus is put on. So there's something seductive, or there's the some of the stories, it's, there's all sorts of things. And then but the fear element will be there, not only because there will be challenges in attempting to even get to the thing you're wanting to do. There will be the fear of, like you say, the deeper the question, the more everyone else around you is going to think you're crazy for doing it. So you're already going to have the fear of, as soon as you announce, I'm going on this quest, or I'm doing this, or I'm changing my life, I'm moving in this direction, a huge number of people are going to tell you, that's crazy. Why would you do that? So you're going to get instant resistance. And so there'd be a fear factor of just even deciding to go on it. So it's very interesting that these three things link into this idea of the quest.
Yeah, definitely. I was just looking at the steps again, and like in this, it says Act 1, ordinary world. This is where a hero is living, and blah, blah, that's where they find a problem. So that's very much like, what was the first one? I lost that word. Memory.
In the quest step, or what I just said?
Your three ones, yeah. Gosh.
Nostalgia. I was nostalgia.
So the ordinary world is step 1 in the quest, and that's the same as nostalgia, right? That's their world that they live in, and that's something that pushes them to want to change. That gives them the reason to go forward, and then they get the call to adventure, which is the start of the adventure. Then fear steps in, which is the refusal of the call. That they start imagining fears, they don't want to do it, and then they meet their mentor, and they start to cure their fears. And then fear, and then it's crossing the threshold and basically into action, which is the initiation. So it's like the first half of that is literally, it's very similar to those three that you were just talking about. And then we hit action, which I guess is the place you've got to get to, and that's where the more physical quest becomes, because you can look at it. I've often said, we need to deserve what we want, and I guess that's what a quest is, isn't it? It's kind of proving that you deserve what you want, and whether it be to whatever, to God or to the physical world or to yourself, however this works, we've still got to go through, a process of where, because if you don't deserve it, you're not the person that can wield the sword, shall we say, that can accept the prize. You haven't grown enough to be what you asked for. If you want to be a carpenter, you've got to do certain things. You can't just, you know, buy a store and start charging people money.
And I think it's also a huge block for people because a lot of people won't start on a journey. They won't start on a quest because they say right away, I'm not good enough already. They already say, I'm not worthy enough of this. So I better do some penance or atone, or I've got to change. I've got to get before I can even start, as opposed to,
Yeah, right.
the greatest knowledge can come to the worst criminal,
Yeah,
so it in a part, it has nothing to do with your worthiness per se of if you're naughty or nice, if you've sinned, if you've been nice, if you've been, it more has to do with, I think, the intensity of your intent, the focus of what's driving you internally, and at least the recognition to, yes, be looking at your life and saying, where have I done things well and where have I done things poorly? Where have I not lived my life well? Not to beat yourself up and take away the worthiness, but to see, okay, those are things I've done badly. I feel bad about it. I'm going to try find ways to atone it, but that doesn't mean I can't complete the quest. If you already think you can't complete it because you're not worthy right now, today, this second, you've already lost.
lost. Yeah, and it's interesting because most of the time the quest is the path that's going to teach you what you need to learn, but people don't start that because they think they need to learn something first. And so there's this big dichotomy there.
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with trust as well, as far as, wherever you want to put your trust, right? Whether, again, be God or in yourself or whatever.
Right.
You've just got to take a chance and take that first step. And the thing is, we know when this happens, people tend to get good results. And maybe that's a rule, or, something we can explore is, intent with action. When you actually, because it's one thing, saying you're going to do something, right? But as we know, people are what they do, not what they say. So, that intention with the action, yep, I'm serious. And then of course it's, you've got to keep that action going, because like you said, every time you're going to get pushback. But if you keep going through those trials, most people attain the prize. They don't always know it's the prize when they get it, and it might not always look like the prize or what they thought it was, but they always attain a prize that they tend to, don't they?
Right. And I think that's where the question is so vital, because it's like, if the question at your core, if you're saying, I need to know this answer, this is good, I must, whatever it is, I must have the answer, then it's sort of like those game shows, where you're on your way to the $1 million, but you get to a point and they offer you 100,000. If you'll just stop now, you could lose everything, but if you take the 100,000, you leave now. And if someone takes the 100,000 in this example, then it means the question will never truly get answered. And you have to sort of also look ahead. Once you've got your core question, the idea of, I don't want to die without having it answered, or at least have put all of my effort into answering it, because then my life won't have meaning. It doesn't matter what the trinkets are that are given before me. If you're not serious enough about the question, then you'll turn right, you'll veer off, and you'll settle.
Yeah.
And it might be nice, it might be pleasant, but then you'll die and you'll realize, I didn't answer my question. And
we don't want to be that person, do we? We've all heard the story of when they interviewed the old lady, and she just wished that, she danced more and sung more and just been herself, basically doing what she wanted to do. But yeah, I forgot what my point was now that I said that. Yeah, questions. So what were you saying? The question. Oh, I can't remember.
And if you don't have your question fully, if you don't really are going to demand an answer from it, then there's lots of things in the world. Yeah, either you'll stop when things get tough because the things are too difficult, so I'm going to give up, or you get something that's like a nice little, like you say, reward, and that's good enough.
Yeah, yeah,
And therefore the quest can end either of those two ways.
yeah. You can get bought out by, are you gonna sell out? But you mentioned a game show, and it's interesting that game shows are like mini quests, aren't they? Especially, those ones where they, you sort of win something and they're like, oh yeah, do you want to plan for the next one, or do you want to take this, or, you can win big here if you take
Right.
a bigger chance, or just take a little chance and you'll win, you'll still win something. So they quest, but they're actually geared, when you think about it, to kind of make us sell out, aren't they? Really, because and they stack it,
Yeah.
so the odds are, if you were watching game shows, I'm sure a lot more people win prizes on the first and second levels than actually win the big prize, right? And so there's all these, you see all these clips and people are like, I didn't win it. Oh my God, I've lost. Oh. And that's kind of what they, that they promote. It's all about, will they win? Will they win? Will they win? Will they sell out? So, it's being shown to us everywhere, right? All this stuff. But of course, it's always been presented in a way that to make us not ask the right questions, right? And also with game shows, clearly tied in is they're trying to tell us, well, you don't really need the question, right? You don't need the quest. You can just come on a game show and win money, and then all your dreams will be answered, right? It's all good. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
And if you're too scared to do that, you can sit on the couch and
Yeah.
pretend that you're someone else and just enjoy their winnings and wake up tomorrow in the same position. But, it's like, will you sell out your dreams? They're tempting them. Will you sell your dreams? Will you sell your dreams? Are you going to keep going? So yeah, it's everywhere, right? The
Of course, like how
quest.
many lottery winners have there been? The big lottery winners, and within 2 years they're broke.
It broke, or
You know,
worse. I think
they're
I think that
and way more miserable
worse
than they were
off.
beforehand.
Yeah, worse off. Yeah, exactly. Because most
Yeah.
of them collect debt. They get all these things that they can't afford, and that, and they lose money selling them, and they're worse off. And that again is because
Yeah.
they weren't worthy, right? They didn't take the quest, so they weren't. To be, a millionaire, say, to be someone who can keep, hold that kind of wealth, or do whatever needs to be done to have that kind of wealth at their disposal, you have to be a certain kind of person. And that's why if you get the $1 million and you just give it to someone who hasn't been on that journey, hasn't become the person they need to be, hasn't become the millionaire,
Right.
then they can't be a millionaire, because they're not a millionaire. So the money disappears. Right. And we hear the other thing, right? Just back to money. I mean, and we don't want to focus on that, but you hear the story of people who make money and they lose everything, and then in 2 or 3 years they've made it all back. So because they've taken whatever quest it was to become, a millionaire in their life. That was their quest, right? Or that's one of the quests that they did, and their quest may not have even been, I want to be a millionaire. A lot of the time it's, I want to, let's
Right.
something good, right? I want to fix the world. I need, $100 million to do this. Part of that bigger quest is becoming a millionaire because they need access to funds, right? So, quests can be sort of multiple as well, can't they? You hit one point, and that as long as you've got the right question, then you can keep going to the next point in the bigger quest.
And it makes it easier. I can just speak from my own life. When I was really focused on that ancient Egyptian stuff before I made my first trip to Egypt in 2004, when literally it was underneath me. I need to know the secret of ancient Egypt. It was like just lived in my body. So it made a lot of things I did very easy, because it was like, if I came to a point where should I do A or B, all I had to ask is, which one do I think is going to get me closer to knowing what I need to know?
Yeah.
And even if it seemed like a really dumb choice compared to the two, there was no choice, because that was my driving thing to everything. It was just, which one is going to get me closer to what I'm driving to here. And so it actually, the stronger you have a question that is genuine and honest, and you're holding to it, it actually makes things easier in the world, because your time or your need to make decisions falls away really quickly, because one over the other will seem quite obvious. This is going to take me closer to my answer, and this one won't.
Exactly. It's kind of like goal setting, right? And just defining what you want. It's and we know, people are so focused they don't even, hardly even see the other questions, right? They just like, "Doo, but yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Is, once you've defined the question and you know where you're going, then you know what questions are going to get you there, and you know what questions to ignore. So because we're going to get questions anyway, right? And especially we're going to get the system or whatever it is, the world, rearing up and saying, look over here, right? Trying to seduce us. Come over here and just, sit down and sell out and we'll give you this. So that's, and again, we're back to it's all about the question. So once, you've defined where you want to go, then the answer to the questions becomes simple because you've defined the quest.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been a really interesting hour that came out of just this one little idea, the idea that you came up with, questions define the quest, because it's really trying to understand what is a question really, like even to say like, uh, you know, where do I buy oh, I like this tea that you're serving me. Where did you buy it? How can I get that? What
Yeah,
even is that? What is the mechanism of the whole question asking process, even at that level, to even think about? And then it's, yes, as we take, like we say, we take it back further and further to something that's going to, because all questions will drive us, even that, right? If I have that
yeah,
question, where can I buy this tea? I've got to at least call somebody up. Do you have it? Do whatever. I'll check the internet. Do they sell it? So we actually then start, the question drives us to action. Like, here's a good one.
yeah,
Would we do anything at all if we didn't have a question? Other than basic survival, if somebody put food in front of us, we would eat, and water, we would drink it. But beyond that, would we do anything if we were literally didn't have to sustain ourselves? The questions, at least on all levels, drive us to do something in the world.
yeah. They start a quest of some kind, whether that's to get clean or to cook
Okay.
dinner or, to find tea, right? Or to, build a multi-million-dollar empire. It's all a quest. Some are just, bigger and longer than others. So
Right.
yeah, I would say that, yeah, no, I mean, I would say even eating and drinking, you've still got to, am I hungry? Yes, I am. Okay, where do I get food? You know? So yeah, I think exactly right. That's a good point. I think there probably is no action without a question. And again, this is the problem we find ourselves in, is they're trying to supply us with the questions and they're clearly the wrong questions. So defining the right questions that are our questions are going to give us the right action. If questions define it, start action, then wrong questions, wrong action, right? Right questions, right action, at least right direction. Hopefully, you'll definitely, start
Yeah.
heading in the right direction.
Yeah. I can say it like I say it that way. Right question, right direction. We still
Yeah.
might make errors, but my guess is you'd make less,
Yeah.
because something it would have to be some sort of external emotion then that pulls you away from it. That if you didn't have the external emotion, that if you could stay really centered on this is what's defining my life at this point, I think the decisions get very clear. You know, then what's the right one and what's not. And you don't have to, I don't think you have to think too long about it. It becomes very obvious. If you don't know what's driving you, your reason for like trying to exist in reality, or what you're trying to achieve here, then you're going to get pulled 1,000 different directions, and you're just going to spin in circles constantly, wondering why nothing's going on, why you're not getting anywhere. So the I had again read somewhere that said, if you're struggling, or if you're confused, or if your things aren't going well in your life, all you should really do is take whatever time it takes to define number one question. What is the most important thing you need to focus on or do or achieve or get or understand? Take the time, journal it, think about it, whittle it down, because once you've got that, the rest of it will start to move on its own.
Yeah, yeah. And you can also start to define a plan, you know, of what actions to take that'll start moving you there. And you know, so yeah, I mean, I think again, yeah, that's definitely where we need to start is ask yourself the right questions to find what really is it that you want, without, you know, taking everyone else's opinions into it, right? So I mean, we kind of ended up at the same place that we started, but I think we, you know, covered quite a bit of ground in the middle there. But yeah, leave us your thoughts below, guys. What do you think? You know, is every action a quest? You know, is every action started by a question? You know, can we do anything without a question at all? And if we can't, then clearly that's got to be one of, if not the most important things that we need to think about.
Yeah. Right. I think it's, again, I get the sense we keep touching on really valuable pieces, and then it's, what will the people out there who are watching this, what will you do with it? You know, we're not giving you the box of, you know, you got to think like me or Campbell or whatever else. We're just giving you these things we're sharing that are part of our own journeys that we've gone through. And we're saying, okay, we're giving this to you now. We think there's value in it. What are you going to do with it? And we are curious. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, definitely. Let us know, you know, what have you tried? What are you thinking of trying? But yeah, like Howdy said, ultimately, I guess, you know, bringing it back to this is what we want to do is get everyone to ask more questions. You know, we don't want to, you know, it's like they say, we don't want to teach you what to think. We just want to make you think, right? Make you think something different. So have we? What's it brought up for you? You know, have you, you know, yeah, what have you done with it? Have you tried anything? Let us know in the comments, because we do read them. And, you know, thank you for all the comments. They're really just amazing, right? It's hard to find like even a sort of critical one, even the critical ones, and then they're like, but we really like you. So yeah, you know, big shout out to everyone who's following this series. We really do appreciate it. And we are working on maybe something that in the future that's going to take this to a wider audience that we'll let you know about down the track. But there we go. The quest, the question starts the quest. I think we covered that one quite well. So thank you, Howdy. And we will be back in 2 weeks for another chat. And just if anyone is wondering, yes, we are going to have a chat with Jason. So we'll let you know when that's coming up as well, sometime in the next few weeks, hopefully. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you all in 2 weeks. And stay awesome. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.